The turquoise waters of the Caribbean shimmered under a flawless sun, the perfect backdrop for a perfect vacation. The Sea Serpent, a mid-sized tourist catamaran, glided smoothly, its passengers laughing, taking photos, and sipping cocktails. It was an idyllic scene, a postcard brought to life. The serenity was about to be shattered by a force of nature they could not have predicted. It started as a curiosity. A lone bottlenose dolphin, larger than most, began to follow the boat. The tourists were delighted, rushing to the rails with their cameras. "Look, it's Flipper!" someone shouted. The dolphin, however, wasn't playing. It wasn't leaping gracefully or chattering for fish. It was swimming with a frantic, desperate energy, its sleek body cutting through the water like a torpedo. Then, with a shocking thud that vibrated through the entire vessel, the dolphin rammed the side of the boat. A collective gasp went through the crowd. The captain, a seasoned local named Mateo, frowned. "That's unusual?" The dolphin swam back, turned, and rammed the boat again. Harder this time. Panic began to bubble among the passengers. This wasn't a friendly encounter. It felt like an attack. "What's wrong with it? Is it rabid?" a tourist yelled, backing away from the rail. Mateo grabbed his radio. "Maybe it's tangled in something. Let me see." He slowed the boat to a crawl, trying to get a better look. But the dolphin wasn't injured. Its movements were precise, deliberate. It would ram the port side, swim away, and then ram it again, each time letting out a series of high-pitched, urgent clicks and whistles that sounded less like communication and more like a screeching alarm. Mateo was perplexed and annoyed. He was on a schedule. He had a boatload of increasingly frightened tourists. He pushed the throttle forward to outrun the creature. But the dolphin was relentless. It kept pace easily, ramming the hull with a sickening thud over and over. It was a battle of wills between a 40-ton boat and a 400-pound animal. And the animal was winning. It was forcing the boat to veer slightly starboard, away from its intended course. "This is crazy," Mateo muttered, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. He was about to call the Coast Guard to report an aggressive animal when his first mate, a young man named Rico, pointed to the horizon. "Captain, look." Miles ahead, on their original course, was a reef system known to locals as the Devil's Teeth. It was normally visible, but today, a strange low-lying haze obscured the view. But something was wrong. The water's surface, which should have been churning with waves breaking over the shallow coral, was eerily calm. Too calm. A cold dread washed over Mateo. He'd seen this once before, years ago, as a boy with his grandfather. It was the sign of a rogue tide, an underwater current phenomenon that pulled the water level down dramatically and unpredictably, exposing the razor-sharp coral just beneath the surface. It would be invisible to his depth sounder until it was too late. Their current path was leading them directly into a trap that would have ripped their hull to shreds. The dolphin rammed the boat one last time, a final emphatic shove that pushed their bow further away from the danger zone. Then, as if its job was done, it slowed, circled the boat once, and disappeared into the deep blue. Silence fell upon the deck. The laughing and the chatter were gone, replaced by a stunned, reverent hush. They stared at the placid water ahead, now understanding the invisible death that had been waiting for them. They had been annoyed, frightened, angry, but they had not been attacked. They had been rescued. The dolphin hadn't been ramming them out of aggression. It had been herding them, pushing them, screaming at them in the only language it knew to save them from a fate it could somehow sense. It had put itself in harm's way, repeatedly crashing its body against a steel hull to steer them to safety. Mateo slowly guided the boat on the new, safer course, his hands trembling slightly. He picked up the radio, his voice thick with emotion. "This is the Sea Serpent. To all vessels in the area, avoid the Devil's Teeth Reef. I repeat, avoid the Devil's Teeth. You're not going to believe why." The rest of the trip was quiet. The passengers no longer looked at the sea as just a beautiful playground. They looked at it with a newfound respect, a sense of wonder at the mysteries it held. They had been touched by an intelligence far beyond their comprehension. Sometimes, a warning doesn't come as a gentle whisper, but as a desperate, violent shove. And sometimes, The most profound acts of guardianship come from the silent depths, from a creature who understands the language of the ocean better than any map or machine ever could.